Hello, my name is Cheryl Meyer, otherwise known as Cheryl M. Health Muse, and I am a health coach. I want to welcome you to my podcast, It Feels Good to Feel Good, Future-Proof Your Health. This is a weekly show that will share lifestyle changes that you can make to support your health yourself. Why do I want to share this information with you? 7 years ago, after being a business owner for 20 years, I woke up one morning in horrific pain where every bone and every joint in my body hurt. I went to the doctor. She ran lots of tests, and then she ran some more, and then she ran some more, and finally she called me and announced she was going to give me steroids, but there was absolutely nothing wrong with me and I should seek therapy. I knew something was wrong. I hurt. So she told me I would be on steroids for the rest of my life, and I refused that I was going to have a life of pain and pills. So why was I going to take steroids if there was nothing wrong with me? So I dug in and started researching, and I turned my business over to my staff. I found a functional doctor who confirmed that I had autoimmune disease. By making a series of significant lifestyle changes that I could do for myself, 5 years later, I had returned to relative health. The best part is that I am now 70, and I feel better now than I did when I was 50. I no longer hurt, which is huge. I will always have autoimmune disease, but losing the pain has been amazing. I went back to school at 67 and became a health coach because I want to share everything that I learned with others. And I wrote a book called It Feels Good to Feel Good, Learn to Eliminate Toxins, Reduce Inflammation, and Feel Great Again, as the manual I wished that I had had when I got sick, and my book has won 13 awards. So whether you want to future-proof your health and grow old with dignity and grace without dementia and chronic pain and disease, which you don't need to get, or whether or not you already have a chronic condition like autoimmune disease or cancer or heart disease, and you want to learn about what things you can do to improve your long-term health, or whether you want to improve the health of your families and raise healthy children, because 53% of our children have a chronic condition, I look forward to sharing all this information with you. I will tell you, it truly does feel good to feel good, so let's get started. I look forward to having you join me here every week, and I want to give you hope that if you have chronic pain or chronic disease, you can make changes that will improve your health. And if you don't want to go there, you're going to be fine if you listen to the show and put these things into work. I want to give you information so that you can grow old and have a better tomorrow. So thank you for joining me. Let's get started. Hello, welcome to another edition of It Feels Good to Feel Good, Future-Proof Your Health. Today, we're going to be talking about the importance of eating organic. And then in the next podcast, I'm going to give you all the ways that you can find money so that you can afford to buy organic, because it's important. As some of you know, I have been running classes on how to stop eating what's known as the standard American diet, which is processed food and fast food, and to cut out the crap, carbonated, refined, artificial, and processed. And why am I so passionate about this? I'm passionate about this because the diet that we're eating as a population is making us sick, and it's making our children sick. It is estimated by the functional medical community that 80% of us have some kind of a chronic illness, and that's the reason why the Corona-19 virus has gotten such a strong hold and killed over 700,000 of our citizens. And it's because our immune systems are not strong because of the food that we're eating, which is heavily chemical and not giving us the nourishment that our bodies need so that we can fend off disease. I'm pretty strong in terms of why it's important to eat organic, Because if you eat organic, you're not getting a heavy dose of toxins with every bite of food that you eat. And so I want to explain all the reasons why I believe that organic is better for our bodies as a way to raise your awareness that somewhere out there, even if you can't do it right away, it would be a great goal for you to think about eating real food, to buying it as local as possible. And some of my previous podcasts have talked about why it's important to buy local, why it's important to eat the whole rainbow, why it's important to get it from a farm as close to you as possible, because the minute that the plant food is picked, it starts to lose some of what's known as its phytonutrients, which means that you're not getting the heavy dose of goodness that that plant actually has in it. But even if you're buying your organic fruits and vegetables in the grocery store, and even if they're being flown in from Chile or some remote area, to eat real food is so much better for you than to eat the standard American diet of processed food and fast food. Your body needs what's in real fruits and vegetables. And so start slowly. Start by adding more fruits and vegetables, real food in, even if you're still eating processed food, because it will serve your body well. Now, I've run 3 classes this year, and I've had approximately 30 people go through them. Not a huge amount. But each class, I get people who write testimonials that they're seeing huge improvements in their health in as short as 30 days from eating real food and controlling what they're putting into their bodies. I'm not judging anybody if what you're eating is the standard American diet, but I am trying to inspire you to clean up and eat better because your body will serve you better. And we seem to think that as we get old, we should go and we should start getting pills, and we're looking for the magic pills so that we don't have the aches and the pains and the disease that we get. Well, we're getting disease because the standard American diet leads to what I call the standard American diseases. I got one. I got autoimmune disease. That's one of the standard American diseases. And it was because I cleaned up all the toxins in all areas of my life that I was able to return to an area where I did not have pain anymore. And I wish I had learned this when I was younger, which is one reason why I am so passionate to talk about this with all of you. I also want to thank you because my podcast on voiceamerica.tv is now second on my platform, so people out there are interested in listening about health, and I'm very grateful for that. And the podcast is now heard in 70 countries around the world. So let's knuckle in and get down to brass on why I want you to move away from processed food and fast food. The first thing is when I post on Facebook, I often have people who come to me and ask me where the triple study is that has been over a long period of time that proves that eating real food is better for you. So my first thing is a quote by somebody in the functional community that says, humans have gotten so disconnected from reality, they need multiple scientific studies that show that consuming raw fruits and vegetables is actually healthy for people. Understand who's running all of these tests. You have to have a whole lot of money. So these studies are going to be done by big food, big ag, or big pharma because they have the money. But just because they did the study doesn't mean that what they're proving is the only way that you should choose to go about your health. Because Monsanto, as an example, knew from one of their triple studies that for 25 years they knew that glyphosate, which is Roundup, was creating cancer in human bodies. And then when John F. Kennedy Jr. sued Monsanto for a man who had sprayed a schoolyard with all those chemicals who got cancer, in discovery, he discovered that they had known for 25 years that that chemical created cancer. Now, that was a chemical that went through all of those triple studies, and yet we still did not know how dangerous that chemical was to us. And just so that you know, even though they have now stopped allowing us to spray it at home on our lawns, and you will no longer be able to buy it at Home Depot and Lowe's and other home improvement stores to spray on your home gardens, it is still being sprayed by Big Food on our factory farmed vegetables. And so my first question is, do you really want a healthy dose of glyphosate or Roundup with every bite of food that you get? Since Monsanto lost that lawsuit, Bayer has taken over Monsanto, and they inherited all of the legal jeopardy that Monsanto got when they lost that lawsuit. So now Bayer has paid out literally billions of dollars to other people who have gotten cancer from that chemical, but it's still being sprayed. And if you're buying organic, you're ensuring that you're not getting the food sprayed with that chemical. And it's not the only one. There are several chemicals being sprayed on our food that are dangerous to our bodies and dangerous to our health. So we're going to talk about what's important about buying organic, why I want you to buy organic, and all of the advantage of buying organic today. My second place to start is another quote. What would happen if everyone ate lots and lots of fresh organic food that was minimally processed? Oh my God, I think we would have an epidemic of health. Wouldn't that be wonderful? So I want to do my small part in being part of the change to create an epidemic of health out in America and out in the world. And why is this important beyond our borders in America? Well, other countries are now buying all of our processed food, and our fast food companies are now in countries all over the world. And so in countries like France, where they truly are farm to table, they're much healthier as a population than we are here. So, what's the number one reason to not be eating big farm, factory farmed fruits and vegetables that are sprayed with all these chemicals? The number one reason is that it will keep you safe from dangerous chemicals. Foods that are free from dangerous chemicals that cause serious diseases like cancer, cardiovascular diseases, and in some cases, chemical processes and things that are found in fertilizer brands are affecting human system immunity. I don't think COVID-19 is going to be the last major superbug that goes through our population. So I want you to start eating real food now. Start building up your immune systems. Start giving your body what it needs so that it can help protect you. And we've talked about in previous podcasts how every single cell in your body has a shelf life and is constantly being rebuilt and replaced with new cells. And what you need is good quality building supplies, because you don't want to be one of the three little pigs in the straw house, the twig house. You want to be that three little pig that's in the brick house, so when the big bad wolf blows at it, it stands and protects you because you've been eating real food with real phytonutrients so that your body can withstand it. So the second reason to buy organic is because it will keep you safe from all these pesticides and herbicides that we've been talking about. If compared to chemical compounds from fertilizing processes, the pesticides can be dangerous because of the application system where it was sprayed directly on our fruits and vegetables. They also get into the soil and then come up through the root system, and then they trickle down into our shelf water, into our water systems, into our streams, into our lakes and our rivers, and they flow out to the ocean. And then they start killing our life, even in the oceans, because the majority of the life in the oceans is close to land. And so where does all that water end up? Close to land. So it's important for you, it's important for your family, it's important for your community, it's important for climate change and the world that we start eating more and more organic foods that are not grown with all these chemicals. Now, it's not the only reason for climate change, but it certainly is one of the reasons for climate change. So I want you to think about that. Okay, one of the things I want to talk about are what are some of the diseases that are caused indirectly or directly by herbicides and pesticides, because we're eating poison. One of them, and we're going to put this slide right over me when this is produced so that you can see this whole list, but I'm just going to highlight a few of them. One of the things that herbicides and pesticides that are getting sprayed on our factory crops are doing is it's creating ADHD in our children. It's also partly responsible for Alzheimer's disease, which is known as diabetes type 3 now. It's also responsible for Parkinson's disease because it interferes with the pathways for dopamine to do its thing and be able to go into our body so that we can utilize it. It's causing birth defects. It's one of the causes of autism. It's one of the causes of brain cancer and breast cancer and cancers in general. It causes celiac disease and gluten intolerance. It's causing chronic kidney disease and colitis. It does create some depression because it interferes with our feel-good hormones, as does sugar, which is also a genetically modified crop. It interferes with that so that our pathways for all of our happy hormones, which are GABA and serotonin and dopamine and insulin, they get interrupted so that we're not making as many, which is causing some depression. So if you are depressed, I'm not saying that you don't need any kind of therapy to talk out whatever your issue is, but start by changing what you're eating, because if you give up the chemicals and the sugar and you get through the addiction and come out the other end, and then you eat more real life food, you might start to see an improvement in your mood right there. Diabetes is a direct result of these chemicals, and certainly obesity is. And one of the reasons is all of these chemicals go through your liver. And what is the function of your liver? I did 3 podcasts on this. I felt so strongly about it. The function of your liver is to be the clearinghouse for all of the toxins that enter your body environmentally, through your food, through your air, through all the different methods that it enters your body. They all have to go through your liver, and your liver does a really great job until it can't anymore, till it just can't keep up. And so this is important because if you start to eliminate some of the toxins from your life, your liver doesn't have to work as hard. And even at that, if you've been eating toxins and living in a toxic soup your whole life, your liver has probably stored a lot of the toxins in your fat because it couldn't keep up, and so it wants to do something with them. So as you start to lower your toxic load, you begin to set the stage for your body to be healthier. Liver disease is the #1 cause of heart disease. So these chemicals also do impact your heart. It impacts hypothyroidism and IBS and leaky gut and Lou Gehrig's disease, which is ALS. I knew somebody once who got ALS. It was really tragic to watch him because there was nothing he could do once the disease started, and he had 4 small children. And it just eventually, it did kill him, but the life that he lived was such a poor quality up until he died. It's not something I would wish on anyone. It causes infertility and pregnancy problems. It causes other reproductive problems. And it causes respiratory illnesses, which is one reason why it's so dangerous in the age of COVID-19. For example, the commonly used herbicide Roundup, which we now know that they've known for 25 years was a carcinogen. There is also an insecticide called chlorophorus, which is associated with developmental delays in infants. It impacts children's brains, and studies have also suggested that pesticide residues at levels commonly found in the urine in kids is what's contributing to the ADHD that they're experiencing. It's also been linked to reduced sperm quantity in men. And I don't know if you're aware of this, but all the chemicals that we're eating and that are in our environment have lowered the age for puberty in children. And it is starting to lower, it's creating muck and female hormones, but it's also creating mucking around with our young boys' sperm counts so that, I don't know, 100 years from now, we're not going to be able to propagate. So that's a problem. So all of this, I want you to be thinking about: how can you cook? How can you control what you put into your own body? By cooking, you can also control what you're feeding your children. And these are some of the reasons why that is so important. By eating organic, you're also safe from heavy toxic metals that are found in pesticide fertilizers, which are arsenic, cadmium, lead, mercury, and copper. And they're all in pesticide fertilizers and create dire health issues. In addition, heavy toxic metals create a series of serious impacts on our bodies, including our liver and the kidneys, because they're the clearinghouse for the toxins. Now, when I got tested with autoimmune disease for heavy toxic metals, it was like eureka. I had them all. And I had made a joke to my functional doctor that I probably was loaded with heavy toxic metals because I was born in Pittsburgh and I was allergic to Pittsburgh. I remember, and we left Pittsburgh when I was 4, I remember them spraying the streets to keep the coal dust and the steel dust down. My father was a chemist and he knew he had to get me out of there or I might not grow up. Now, I'm 73 years old, so this was a long time ago. But there are still many areas in our country where people are living in a toxic soup, and people who are close to factory farms are getting all of those toxins, whether they're eating organic or not. So be aware of all this, because this is impacting our health and our climate and every other aspect of our life. In addition, toxic metals create a series of serious impact on our bodies, including our liver and our kidneys. If you're eating organic, number 5, you're eating GMO free. Now, we had GMO on the ballot here in California, and there was so much misinformation, it didn't pass. I had no idea what being genetically modified meant. Well, now I know it means, amongst other things, 2 major things. It either has had Bt toxin grown right up in the plant so that when the bug bites it, it blows them up. Unfortunately, I thought it was going to enter our bodies and then just get flushed back out. But the problem is it gets into our gut, and it's the gift that keeps on giving because it's replicating in our guts. So it has dire effects long term on our bodies. And then the other thing that GMOs are is been made Roundup ready. What is Roundup? Roundup is glyphosate, which is what we just found out Monsanto knew was a carcinogen for 25 years. So stay away from GMOs, and if you're buying organic, then you're not eating genetically modified food, and that's good. Bt toxin is actually a very aggressive toxin that damages cell membranes, and it also destroys all of our good gut bacteria. It can be applied to crops like potatoes, corn, soybeans, and cotton as a spray, or less commonly in a granular form. And Bt proteins can be introduced into the crops themselves through genetic engineering. So what is a genetically modified crop? It's something that has been genetically engineered to be unlike anything that would have ever happened in the normal course of nature. It's also, by the way, killing our bees and our butterflies, which are our pollinators. And if we don't have pollinators, we don't have food, because we need them to be able to pollinate our crops so that we continually get new crops. So that's not a good thing either. The herbicide-tolerant crops, which are the ones that are made Roundup ready, have been developed to survive the application of the herbicide. It's absorbed into the plant and ends up in the food that we eat. And there are numerous studies now showing significant health damage linked to tiny amounts of glyphosate and Roundup. And you have to be careful. I actually caught my gardener spraying Roundup on my lawn, and I ran out and said, "Hey, stop. It's not good for you. It's not good for your kids who come and help you sometimes when you're working on my lawn, and it's not good for me because I'm immune compromised." And he said, "But you're going to have weeds." And I said, "But think about it. I'm not willing to trade off your health or mine for weeds. So make sure that it's not being sprayed in an area close to you." And the guy who won the lawsuit 2 years ago was spraying it on school grounds. You don't want it around your kids on school grounds either. The ninth reason to be excited about eating organic is that it's actually richer in certain nutrients. Vitamins and minerals in non-organic and organic products have been shown in some studies not to be significantly different from industrial farming. But the belief is that it's because the studies didn't go on long enough to get to what the dire effects were. But I just found one of the missing links by a doctor named Dr. Joseph Pizzorno, who is one of the fathers of functional medicine. He's a naturopath, and he's been studying toxins his whole life. And he just discovered that all of these chemicals actually block the pathways for phytonutrients to be able to function in your body. So the studies have been done on what I did a podcast on called the essential nutrients: your magnesium, your potassium, all the things that, your amino acids, the things that we need on an everyday to be able to function in our bodies. But they weren't looking at the phytonutrients because that's much newer research and newer discoveries. When I first started studying all of this, they only knew of 6,000 phytonutrients. I just listened to Dr. Pizzorno in a podcast, and he's now talking about 50,000 phytonutrients. So what are phytonutrients? They're things that the plants produce themselves that give them color. So if it's like a purple phytonutrient, it's on the outside of the skin of grapes. And what does it have in it? It has resveratrol in it. And resveratrol now has been shown to actually be able to stop cancer in the body. We have 50,000 of these chemicals that are doing our bodies favor. Now, the plant's not making them for us. The plant is making them for them. Just like when I did my tree podcast, trees in the forest have a relationship for the rest of their life with their children that have grown up around them in the forest. And they let go a chemical that is actually really good for all their little children around them, but it's also really good for us because those chemicals are called NKs and they have cancer-fighting properties. Well, the plants produce chemicals that are good for them. It protects them from disease, it protects them from insects, it protects them from all kinds of things, but they also have all kinds of health benefits for us as humans and for animals, wild animals. So I am constantly amazed at what an amazing place this earth is and how complex it is. And we don't even begin to understand how all the pieces fit together. But the phytonutrients are the building blocks that you need to build new cells and that you need to create health. And they now understand that we need all the colors. We need them as close to the farm as possible because the closer to being picked, the more gifts they have for the body, and that by eating all the colors fairly close together, they get together and a synergy happens that's even better for our bodies. Phytonutrients like antioxidants and some of the more natural substances are proven to be higher due to no interference from chemical compounds that reduce the number of nutrients contained. A study done out of Berkeley proved that significant difference even in vitamins and minerals in organic farming, because old-fashioned practices like crop rotation maintain them in the plant food. In over 300 studies from the British Journal of Nutrition, they found that when it came to having the healthiest quantities of lots of phytochemicals, organic foods had more than conventionally grown ones. Phytonutrients are necessary for health. And over the course of your life, because you're most likely younger than me, you're going to be hearing more and more about what they're discovering about these incredible chemicals that are found in the plant foods that we're eating. These nutrients need to be primed. So if you're buying local organic food, you're buying close to the harvest. I talked last podcast a lot about the importance of buying local. So the items have more phytonutrients that are actually available for your body. If you're buying organic produce, then you're buying healthy products only. They're safe from any dangerous chemical compounds that are causing some medical conditions. Now, one of the things that the functional medical community believes is they believe in something called leaky gut. Leaky gut is where you have not properly digested your food in your stomach, and so it's in too large of a chunk to go through the wall of your gut. Lots of things cause your food not to be properly digested. Toxins are only one of them. Parasites can do it, sugar can do it, stress can do it, lack of sleep can do it, lack of movement can do it. There's lots of things, but one of them is all of these toxic chemicals, whether it's from cleaning supplies or in our water supply or in our food. Toxic chemicals are one of the things that's causing our food not to be digested down to the right size. So it's pushing up against the wall of our gut. Now, the wall of our gut is only 1 cell thick. I find that astonishing. And so it reaps a little hole in our gut lining, which is what leaky gut is. And then when it goes into our bloodstream, our immune system does exactly what it's supposed to do, and it screams foreigner. And then the body does something really interesting. Wherever you're weak in your body, that little food particle that's causing all that havoc with your immune system starts mimicking tissue where you're weak in your body. For me, it was my joints and my muscles, so that the autoimmune disease that I got, which is undefined because it's a little bit of several columns of autoimmune diseases, and there's 140 known ones. Me, I got to get one that's not known. But it's closest to fibromyalgia, which attacks the muscles and the joints. And so that's where my body attacked itself when this food started leaking through to my blood system and going into my liver, and my liver didn't know what to do with all those chemicals. So by buying organic food from the farmer's market, it's potentially budget saving because you have the option of bartering with farmers for their goods and services. They've trucked them all the way in from their farm. They most assuredly don't want to truck them all the way back to their farm. They want to get rid of them by the end of the farmer's market. And if you start eating real food, it takes less food to satisfy you. So you're not buying as much food, and you're buying quality food that feeds your body. All of these make it so that it's not quite as expensive as you think it is, and it's all really good for your body. Organic food is also safe from other crazy stuff, like the frankenfoods or the genetically modified foods, or tomatoes that are spliced with fish genes for cold weather tolerance. Doesn't sound like such a good idea to me. Or food that's been grown with sewer sludge, which happens in factory farming. Food that's been given appetite enhancers that are given to animals along with synthetic hormones so that they grow bigger and fatter, so that when they land on your plate, they got more for that meat. There are no strange or gross practices in organic farming. No irrigation and nothing else that goes against common sense or nature. The Rodale Institute's work over the last 40 years actually shows that organic agriculture leads to equal or better yields than conventional farming. sometimes as much as 30%, with less energy being used and 3 to 6 times more profits for the farmer. And they're not the only ones who found this to be true. It's been repeated in 5 different studies from various universities and from the USDA. Now, in organic farming, you don't have to have an additional budget for fertilizer. You don't have to have an additional budget for pesticides. And a conventional farm can purchase, they don't have to purchase Monsanto or Bayer seeds, that the farmer can actually take seeds from his own crops and replant them. Whereas if it's factory farming or they're seeds from Monsanto or Bayer, they are not allowed to do that because they are patented. So they have to buy new seeds every year. That farmer also can choose from a much wider variety of seeds. They can grow heirloom varieties and other colors and variations that are different than the big crops being grown on factory farms. An organic farmer gets to choose seeds for taste and for nutrition, whereas factory farming is choosing seeds for the longevity of the plant because they want it to last as long as possible before it rots. Just like, I don't know if you've ever read one of the studies where they can take a fast food burger and you can leave it on the counter in your kitchen and in 3 years it hasn't rotted and it hasn't changed shape. Well, they're doing some of that with factory farmed vegetables and fruits too, where it just doesn't rot because it has been spliced together with things that prohibit it from rotting. Now, I'm exaggerating when it comes to real food. It does eventually rot. But when I'm talking about fast food, it doesn't necessarily. So think about it. Do you really want to eat something that isn't ever going to change shape? And do you want to put that into your body? And do you want that much power to go to Monsanto and Bayer that they get to dictate what we eat and that they're taking out the seeds that have the maximum phytonutrients and that have the best possible taste? Now, how would you check this out? We live part-time in Sedona, Arizona, and we went to a farmer's market in a different area each weekend over the summer. One of the farmer's markets we went to had 2 plates out of tomatoes. One had come from a conventional factory farm and had been cut up into little pieces for tasting, and the other had been grown locally on an organic farm. And they invited each of us to take a toothpick and taste the 2 different tomatoes. There was no comparison. The tomato that was factory farmed had practically no taste, where the tomato that was locally grown from a local farm that was loaded with goodness and phytonutrients tasted like a little slice of heaven. So one of the things that happens when you're never eating real organic food is your taste buds change, and you're getting addicted to the additives that are making that boring gray food actually taste good. Whereas if you're eating real food, you're getting addicted to the taste of real food that actually has phytonutrients in it that are good for you. So that's a choice. So that's another great reason for you to be looking for organic food. These are 11 truths about genetically modified food. They're laboratory made using technology that's totally different from natural breeding methods, and they pose totally different risks from non-genetically modified crops. They can be toxic, allergenic, or have less nutrients in them than their natural counterparts. They are not adequately regulated to ensure safety. They do not increase yield potential. Now, they'll tell you one of the reasons we need genetically modified crops is because they're going to feed the world. The problem is they're not feeding the world. They've not even gotten out to feed the world. Genetically modified crops are pretty much out there to go into processed food and to feed factory ranched animals, which they're also having a dickens of a time keeping healthy enough so that it can land on your plate. It does not reduce pesticide use, but it's ended up that it actually increases it because the plants are becoming less resistant to the pesticides over time. It's creating serious problems for farmers, including super weeds that now are tolerant of the herbicides. It's also causing some illness in the farmers that are doing the factory farming. It is compromising soil quality and it is increasing disease susceptibility in crops. It has mixed economic effects, and obviously it's having some climate effects. It's harming soil quality, disrupting ecosystems, and reducing biodiversity, which I just gave examples of. It does not offer effective solutions to climate change at all, but instead is adding to it, are as energy hungry as any other chemically farmed crops, and it cannot solve the world hunger, but it distracts from its real causes. We have enough food to feed the world, even if we grew it all organically, but we are wasting unbelievable amounts of food so that it doesn't get to the hungry. And that's the bigger issue. And all of that wasted food is, again, creating gases that are adding to climate change. So it's increasing a lack of access of land to grow our food on. And so if we moved away from that, and if you all started buying organic, and if we shifted towards buying organic, we would have an impact on how many genetically modified crops are being grown and how much commercially farmed foods are being grown. If we're buying organic, it's creating healthy conditions. There's no topsoil erosion. There's no pollution. There's no nutrient depletion. There's no antibiotic resistant bacteria that's growing on the plant or in the factory farmed animals. There's no scarred landmarks from clear cutting and monocropping when we work with nature to provide for our needs. It supports and is supported by nature. So let's face it, there might be advantages to organic food or manufacturing processes that we're not even aware of. But we know that organic has worked for millennia. My grandparents, your great-grandparents, and great-great-grandparents, they all farmed their food using organic practices. It's only in my lifetime that we've moved so far away from that. And look at the disease that we have in our population. Maybe causally, but certainly as somewhat of an effect of eating all these chemicals. It's important to understand that what is organic isn't actually more expensive. Non-organic food has been made artificially cheap because of government farm subsidies. Our tax dollars are going to factory farmed food, factory farmed growing, factory farmed animals. Instead, we're making organic food much more expensive to be grown because they have to jump through hoops to prove that they haven't used any chemicals anywhere near their food. They have to keep all kinds of records and books, and they have to be able to prove at a drop, if somebody walks in from the USDA, that their farm is indeed organic. Now there is an in-between area. If you shop at farmers markets, the farmers market itself has talked to the farmers, and although they may not be certified organic, they're using some kind of non-chemical method to grow their crops. So they're not certified, but they're also not using chemicals on their crops. We buy a lot of food that way at our farmers market because what we're concerned about is eating the chemicals. So that's an in-between zone where you might be able to buy food at a little better price that is competitive with factory farming, but not as expensive as certified organic produce. By choosing organic, you are supporting the earth and minimizing climate change. You're making a conscious effort to do your part to sustain the Earth's resources. A good ecological balance is being met with organic agriculture, and the reduction of things like synthetic fertilizers reduces all of the dangerous chemicals in our soil, our air, our water, and it's preserving the integrity of our soil and our plants, and it's protecting our environment. By buying organic, you will improve your children's health. Now, you know, if you've been watching any of my podcasts, 54% of our kids have some kind of chronic illness. I can't tell you how sad that makes me. And if your child is one of them with some kind of a chronic condition, I have 4 podcasts on children's health, so go back and listen to them because they will raise your awareness of things that you can do to improve your child's health. If you feed them organic food, your children will be eating more phytonutrients, they will be eating less toxins, and their little bodies cannot process all of those toxins even as well as our adult bodies can. I just read by Dr. Greger, who wrote a book called How Not to Die. And he is a conventional medical doctor who became holistic because his grandmother was given only a few weeks to live. And she said, she wasn't going to go there. She was in a wheelchair. They wheeled her into Predican, where she went on a plant-based diet. And 6 weeks later, she walked out and was a more healthy human being, and she lived for several years after that. And it got Dr. Greger's attention so that he started studying the importance of eating plant food and the importance of eliminating chemicals from our lives. He just wrote in an article that I read that heart disease is now starting as early as 10 years old. There are streaks of cholesterol in 10-year-old children's arteries. And it's not just one. Now, mind you, the original sample was rather small, but it was in 100% of those kids. So if you have children, and especially if they have any kind of health condition, you might be actually able to halt the health condition, and you might be able to start reversing it by switching over to more organic food. I just had a woman who joined my last detox she had so many health problems, it was unbelievable. And in 6 short weeks, she significantly lowered her triglycerides, her cholesterol. She lost 16 pounds in 6 weeks. She had a hard time even getting her blood pressure cuff on her arm because it was so big. And she was so excited because she could get it on easily now. And she was sleeping better. She had terrible sleep apnea, and she stopped having all her sleep problems. And she stopped getting continual GERD because her stomach wasn't upset all the time. By changing the quality of the food that she ate in that short a period of time, she started seeing huge improvements in her health. Now, I'm not guaranteeing that that's going to happen for everybody, but if you have any kind of a chronic condition, wouldn't it be fabulous if that was you? It certainly did reverse my pain by changing what I was putting in my body. So that's one reason that I'm such a big believer in all of this. One of the other statistics I found is that by the time a child is 7, he could have as many as 5 pounds of toxins in his little body. 5 pounds of toxins. And remember, their bodies are little, so they can't process the amount of toxins that someone my size can actually process. And your body can go through a lot of toxins and sort it out and get it out of your body until it can't. So stop putting all the toxins in and give your body a chance to keep up with itself. By eating organic, you protect your immunity and your family's immunity. Whole foods actually help prevent major and minor diseases and illnesses, meaning lower healthcare costs and less likelihood of missing work. And that's one of the hidden advantages of organic food. Your health then becomes safe from some of the scariest of the chemicals in our world. And some of these chemicals cause immune disorders, infertility, cardiac disease, hypertension, and numerous other diseases, as we read when I read you what pesticides and herbicides do. It will support your local economy. If you start buying local and from farms close to you, because producing organic, especially from the farmer's market, will actually support your local community's economy, which creates jobs and keeps your local farmers and others thriving. So try to buy local and then taste the difference. There is a huge difference in plants that are loaded with all the beautiful phytonutrients they're supposed to be loaded with. So it's keeping your children healthy, it's keeping your family healthy. Conventional food practices have been linked, as I said, to birth defects, learning disorders, childhood leukemia, ADHD, and newborns being born have been shown to have as many as 21 banned pesticides and 200 other harmful chemicals in them right at the point of birth. So have you noticed that there's a lot more allergies in our children now and they're much more severe? Well, that's because before you actually conceive a child, you should clean up your own diet so that they're not receiving all these toxins right through the umbilical cord so that they pop out loaded with toxins right from the very beginning. And the toxins are coming, by the way, from the father and the mother. That surprised me. I thought they would have only been coming from the mother. Not true. They're coming from both. Healthier families means lower healthcare costs. One of the reasons our healthcare system is so broken is because our healthcare system can't keep up with all these chemicals either. So if you start buying organic, you have a better chance to not need the healthcare system because you have a stronger immune system and you won't be taking as many pills and you won't be getting as many chronic illnesses. So organic food actually lowers the risk of medical issues and disease, and this too helps you save more money. Organic provides more nutrients, which makes your body crave healthy food and stops it from craving processed and junk food. And it'll actually start to crave real food so that you won't miss it when you stop eating the processed food, and you will be excited and start craving the real food. So you need to cook because that's the only way that you're going to be able to control what you're putting in your body. Now, we've also gotten addicted to the chemicals in processed food and fast food, and we've gotten addicted to the convenience of just being able to go pick that food up. But I can tell you that once you get a rhythm with cooking, if you buy lots of great vegetables as locally as possible, especially in seasons where it is easily available, and otherwise you can buy frozen organic food that you can utilize at other times of the year, or get CSA boxes, or get co-op boxes, or get food delivery from markets like Misfits Market, which is getting food from the closest local farming that's to you, even if you're on the East Coast. Then you actually start craving the real food because your taste buds change and you'll be surprised. Now, I've talked about how I had a horrible time losing weight my whole life. And it's because I was starving my body. Who would have thought that by being obese, I was literally starving my body because my body was holding on to every single little nutrient it was getting because it didn't want to give it up because it didn't know when it was going to get another nutrient. So by eating organic and eating real food, your body starts to work like it's supposed to and it releases all of those things naturally so that you just start to lose weight without dieting. I've lost 65 pounds that way. And I have people who are successfully losing weight over the course of 5 weeks in my Cut Out the Standard American Diet class. It does work. So think about this. If you're somebody who's had a problem losing weight your whole life, think about eating real food and then doing it at least for 5 weeks and letting the process start on its own, okay? You help your neighbors stay healthy because you're not adding chemicals to the air by doing the kinds of farming that you're supporting. And this will eventually benefit the entire nation and the entire world's health and wellness. Buying directly from the farmer can also save you money on organic produce. One of the things I just learned, which I hadn't really thought about, is you can go to the farm and you can negotiate to pick up a box of fresh food from him every week or every month, whatever you want to have it on a rotation. And that way, you're also buying direct from the farm. So you're not paying for it to be logged thousands of miles from Chile to your grocery store. It's not being trucked across the country. It's not being kept separate so that it can't contaminate organic food. It's just organic food is kept separate because they don't want it near other foods so that it can get confused. If you're buying it from the farm, you know you're getting it right from the farm in the condition that you want it to be from. And you know from talking to your farmer what kind of methods he's using to grow that food. So you're actually getting more bang for your buck because you're buying fruits and vegetables that were just picked, so it's got maximum nutrients in it, and it's loaded with prime nutrients. Now, one of the things I did in the last podcast is I talked about the fact that spinach, as an example, loses 30% of its phytonutrients in 3 days. Now, how many of us get to eat our spinach within 3 days? Probably not very many of us. Does that mean you shouldn't eat your spinach? No, because it still has lots of phytonutrients in it, even if it's been a couple of weeks or even a month since it got picked. But you want to get as many of those phytonutrients as possible, and that's the beauty of buying close to the farm. Organic fruits and vegetables and meat that eats his own specific diet, like grass-fed, grass-finished beef, can have 40 to 90% more antioxidants in it than commercially produced goods. Wow, if that isn't a good reason to go to organic, I don't know what is. Organic food means that you're getting more nutrition. That's the bottom line, which means you're getting more building blocks to build that brick house instead of having that little straw house over on the other side. It has more phytonutrients in it. And if you're not eating the rainbow, you're starving your body, your hunger hormones are not working properly. Did you even know the body had 2 hunger hormones? I didn't. They're called ghrelin and leptin. And they actually tell your brain when it's full. So that by eating real food with real phytonutrients, those hormones start to work correctly again. So that your brain knows when it's time to stop eating. And you won't be hungry all the time. You won't be rooting around for something sweet because your body knows it doesn't want it anymore because it's getting what it needs. It's getting all those beautiful phytonutrients. Now, what's the likelihood that you will gorge on so many carrots that you're going to gain a ton of weight? Probably isn't going to happen. So if you're eating lots of fruits and vegetables, you're also going to naturally come down to a weight level that's more correct for you. Whole foods actually give you fiber, which is really healthy for you, and they help you prevent all those major diseases and illnesses, meaning that you have lower healthcare costs and less likelihood of not being able to go to work. So you're working every day, you're not using the healthcare system, which is broken because it can't keep up with the way we're eating and the way we're living. And it's not just food, it's also how much you move, how you sleep, how much stress you have. It's all of those things, but food is a big part of it. It means more health, vitality, and energy for you. No more brain fog if you're eating organic. You are now getting blood that's going to your brain that's making you more productive. It's all good things. And more nutrition keeps your bones and your teeth fortified, keeps your skin clear. Did you know that psoriasis, eczema, and even acne are an inside job? It evens out your moods and your hormones, especially during puberty or when a woman goes through menopause. She has all the right hormones in balance because of eating all the phytonutrients. And it helps you heal after injuries. It helps you to fight infections. It helps you to heal after you get an infection. So who doesn't want to save money on all those products and all those services that you won't need after you're eating this way? Sounds like a win-win-win to me. So remember, medicine is not healthcare. It mitigates symptoms by covering them up with one of the pharmaceuticals that they give you, but it doesn't really cure anything. What can cure you are all these phytonutrients from your food if you're not eating food that's loaded with toxins. Medicine is sick care. Food is health care. So your food bill might be low, but how much do you spend on all the following things that add to your total budget? Antacids, pain relievers, fever reducers, allergy medications, acne treatments, antibiotics, laxatives, antidepressants, and all the different things that we use for blood pressure, cholesterol, and hormones. Basically, how much are you spending either out of pocket or through insurance on maintaining and reversing decreasing health? This was one of the first things that I discovered when I stopped using even over-the-counter medications and found more natural solutions to things that were not right in my body. For headaches, now I use curcumin, which is the active ingredient from turmeric. For hay fever, now I use quercetin, which is a natural antibiotic. They both come from plants. There's no downside. There's no repercussions from using either one unless for some reason you have a food intolerance to them. And they are much better for your body, so they don't giveth and taketh something else while you're taking them. They don't create a new problem. You ever listen to the ads about drugs on television where they tell you all the wonderful things it's going to do, and then in little tiny writing and at 5 miles an hour they tell you all the things it could also do to your body that's not so desirable? Well, that's what I'm talking about. If you can get away from all of those medications and you can have a healthy body without them, you are so much better off. Basically, in every case where food in all its forms can be the cure, it has been in my life. And so I have firsthand knowledge that all of what I'm sharing with you works. So what has saved me over the last 10 years? With the average number of visits to a doctor per year being at least 3 to 4 per person, and the average cost being between $95 to $200 a visit, we may now I still go to the doctor because I have autoimmune disease, and I still go to a functional doctor, and Medicare pays part of my bills, which is fantastic. But if you're constantly going to the doctor because you have things wrong with your body, it will start to save you some of those expenses. What are all of the advantages of buying locally grown seasonal food? Better taste. It's cheaper because of supply and demand, especially if you're buying in season. It's picked close to market. It has higher nutritional value. Local food protects genetic diversity, so you're getting all those old heirloom varieties that are chosen for taste and not just for longevity. It is genetically modified free, so you're not having toxins grown right in your food. It's supporting your local community. It's preserving open space. It's unlikely that it has been gassed, irradiated, or waxed. Those things are also not good for you. It reduces wastage. I buy from 2 ugly fruit companies. One is called Imperfect Produce and the other is called Misfits. They might have little kinks or little bumps on them, but they have the same amount of phytonutrients in them, and they were all picked relatively locally so that I'm getting maximum bang for my buck. It lasts longer because it was just picked. It doesn't last longer because it's been modified to last as long as possible. And it wastes less resources, which means it wastes less gas, water, and time. The cure begins when you eat all the phytonutrients that are available in the rainbow of organic foods. So my bottom line is eat as if your future health matters. How do you know what's in season? We'll put right over this a slide that takes you to the seasonalfoodguide.org, literally seasonalfoodguide.org, and then it'll tell you in your locale what's seasonally available. And it's like everything else that's supply and demand. If it's in seasonal supply, it means it's in its greatest supply, so there's more than enough to meet the demand, so it's less expensive. So organic tomatoes and berries are going to be non-existent in some areas in the winter, or they're going to be $74 a pound, whereas if you're buying in season, you're buying prime nutrients, prime produce at its best possible price. And there's nothing compared to a spring mix of baby greens or a deep red heirloom tomato or a diced apple, which is my favorite salad ingredient, I might add. So try putting some sour apples into your salad with a spicy homemade vinaigrette because you just might love it as much as I do. Keep in mind that your seasons will vary by location. So what I can get in California and Arizona might not be what you can get in Philadelphia, but you still can get some seasonal produce, especially if you're using a company like Misfits or Imperfect Produce. The seasonal shift in offerings forces us to push outside our comfort zone, try new things, and mix up our standby meals. We've tried all kinds of vegetables that we never ate before, one of which is okra. Now, I never had eaten okra, and it's kind of slimy. It's got this slimy stuff that comes out of it. If I slice it thin and I toss it in butter or ghee, and then I season it, and then I roast it in the oven, it gets kind of crunchy, and it's really delicious. And it's super healthy for us. So that's one of the new vegetables that we've tried. We also really enjoy eating spaghetti squash, which actually comes right out of its shell looking like spaghetti without the carbs. And so it's a really healthy thing to eat. So food will start to become more of an experience, something to be enjoyed around the table with your family. So cook together, eat together, and children are like little pitchers. So if you set the example for them and you eat a variety of fruits and vegetables and you take them with you to the farm to buy organic, they will take all of that with them into adulthood and they will live healthier lives. So buying in season means healthy, organic, and least low-sprayed fruits and vegetables that are going to go on sale when their seasonal bloom hits and there's a surplus at harvest time. So suddenly you're looking at bushels of apples for 50% of the cost, and then you can make applesauce and freeze it. You can make apple pies. You can make all kinds of things when you have that kind of abundance. Now, just because it says it's on sale at the grocery store, it doesn't mean it actually is. So you're going to need to pay attention to prices so that you know when you're getting a good deal and when you're not getting a good deal, because sometimes they raise the prices to lower the prices. They do that in clothing. They do that in retail. I grew up in a department store. I was in retail store management, so I can tell you that they do some of that. But if you're a savvy shopper and you keep track of some of this stuff, you'll know when the good deals are out there. And before we get into how to make the best of all those seasonal deals when you do find them, I want to introduce you to the seasonal food list, which you're going to be able to find at the link above. So these are your takeaways on organic food. Food grown organically is the closest way that Mother Nature intended. Food grown organically is not using synthetic chemicals on the crops. And frankly, it would be very difficult for someone to convince me that I want poison with every bite of food, whether it's a vegetable or a fruit. The soil is more fertile, and because the soil is more fertile, there are more minerals and nutrients in the soil. One of the things that glyphosate Roundup does is the minerals, number one, are not as abundant in the ground itself when it's been sprayed with glyphosate. And then when it gets into your gut, glyphosate actually cleates some of the good minerals right back out of your body so that you're not able to utilize all the beautiful magnesium that you got from that plant. So one of the things, you've heard me say this in several podcasts, when you do go to your doctor, have him check you for your magnesium levels and have him check you for your vitamin D levels, because those are two specific levels that we are particularly low on now, and you can supplement to bring them back up to a great levels, and they're important. They need each other in order to activate in your body, and magnesium itself alone is responsible for 325 different chemical reactions in your body. So if you're eating organic, you're able to get the magnesium, keep it in your body, and utilize it for all of those different body functions. Even more important than the chemicals in factory farming is the blocking of the 50,000 phytonutrients if you're not buying organic, which we need for life, for both in the plant and for the soil. There is no chemical runoff into the groundwater and the streams and the rivers, and the chemicals sprayed on conventional crops are also polluting the air, the ground, the land, and our farmers. Organic food is ironically more controlled by the U.S. government than conventional farming. This is a good news, bad news scenario. It's good news because then we know they are indeed protecting us, and if we're paying for something that says it's organic, that it's certified organic, it really is organic. But they're not paying any attention to all the chemicals that they're spraying on conventional crops. And that's doing our bodies and the environment and our farm animals a lot of harm. Learn to get to know your farmer, whether he's at your farmer's market or at the farm, and take your kids with you so that they know where real food comes from. In my children's podcast, I talk about the fact that kids think that avocados are laid from animals and that chocolate milk comes from chocolate cows, none of which is true. We've gotten so far away from the farm, we don't understand where real food is coming from anymore. You don't need to buy everything organic, so if you have a limited budget, go onto my website and find the Dirty Dozen Clean 15 card. The Dirty Dozen are the dirtiest of the vegetables that have the most toxins on them. And you spend your organic money by making sure you never buy those anything but organic. The other ones that are on the Clean 15, knock yourself out. It doesn't matter if you buy them organic. And that vast area between organic and the Clean 15 is your choice. I buy everything organic because my body can't handle the chemicals. Whether or not you do that is your choice and up to you. The key to remember is staying healthy costs less than getting sick. And I think this is a great place to stop. We're going to start next time on animals and why it's important to also buy your meat organic. And then we're going to go into all the different ways that you can save money so that you can afford to have a little chunk of your body for organic fruits and vegetables. Because I don't want to just tell you what the problem is. I want to tell you how to deal with it. And I want you to be able to utilize the tips that I've learned so that you can afford to do it as well and have healthier, happier bodies to live long and to thrive and to eat for your future health, which is what these podcasts are all about. So thank you for joining me today. Thank you for making my podcast number 2 on a platform that goes out to 70 countries. I'm excited that people want to know about health. I'm excited that I have recovered much of my own health. I'm excited that I'm touching other people's lives by teaching them how not to eat the standard American diet and to ditch the crap, the carbonated, refined, processed foods that they've been eating. And the more that you listen to my podcasts, the more that little bits of this will percolate into your life, which will help you create healthier habits for a better tomorrow. So thank you. I'll see you again next week. Hello, could I see a show of hands if there's anybody out there like me who's tried to lose weight their whole life and not been successful? So you've tried all the different diets available. You've tried Weight Watcher. You've tried Jenny Craig. You've tried all the New York Times bestsellers. And the last time you did it, you started off great, just like all the other times. And you started losing weight, and then all of a sudden you fell off the horse. And before you know it, you're eating fast food and processed food again with all that sugar, and you don't even know why. And in the end, you've gained more weight than where you started out. So you now are beating yourself up that you just don't have the willpower to win. If that's you, I want to address the elephant in the room, because 9 years ago, I got autoimmune disease and started researching because I didn't want the pain that came with the autoimmune disease, and the added benefit was I lost the weight along the way. So let me tell you what happens. Big Food doesn't want you to win. They've rigged the system. They've put so many chemicals into fast food and processed food that they light up the brain like a pinball machine. It's the same part of the brain that goes off for cocaine and heroin, and you feel great when you eat that food, but it's not making you feel good, and you're starving your body for nutrition because it's loaded with empty calories, so you're getting fat eating that food, and it's not giving your body what you need. And it's turning off all your own feel-good hormones of serotonin and dopamine and even your insulin, which keeps your moods even. But worse than that, there's two little hormones here at the back of your neck called ghrelin and leptin, and they don't work, and they regulate your appetite because all those chemicals have subdued them, so you don't even know when you're full. So what did I learn to do instead? I'm eating the GLAD diet, loaded with all the phytonutrients that my body needs to be healthy and to thrive and to boost my immune system and to ditch the pain. And along the way of eating all this live food, I lost 60 pounds without dieting. You see, I was starving my body for nutrition when I was eating the standard American diet, and now that I'm giving my body all those beautiful phytonutrients, it's not holding on to it anymore, so it's just dropping it automatically. So don't eat the standard American diet. I don't want you to get a standard American disease, and I certainly don't want you to die the standard American death. Instead, start eating the GLAD diet, because by eating all those beautiful phytonutrients, you will be healthier and you will live long and thrive. Thank you.